If not, you will all experience kind of the same bluing as Angajuk starts to go underwater. You are going to slowly have this bubble of air that kind of lifts up and around the ship itself. I think I took it out of the handouts, but you can see in the Discord chat where like the explanation of how this bubble kind of is. It forms around the entire ship that's strapped to her back like a straddle. And as she goes under, you can kind of watch this visible layer show up before your eyes, as it's kind of always there, but it really only keeps the water away. So you can also watch it forming in front of you. And while Angashuk starts to go under, you will have a sense of fresh air over the next good portion of time. Angajuk will actually start to be breathing from the same bubble of air, and it gives you one a smell and flavoring of the foods and digestive tract of this huge sperm whale, as well as the recognition that if Angajuk is breathing out of this, this also lets her stay underwater longer. But is also then like the recognition that all are sharing the same oxygen source. But among things that you kind of pick up is this beautiful blue water as you're kind of cutting below the ice, and you start to see for the first time the ocean all around you. In general, it's probably hard to see much of anything at any given point during these swims. It's not really until Engajuk kind of takes you into a location to show you a bit more that perhaps you would actually start to experience some of the other sights, as realistically the light coming in from up above is getting maybe 60 or 100 feet before it's essentially just darkness. So light down here is a big issue with trying to what you're like trying to see and whatnot, but there are certainly points where Engajuk will kind of take you by and you'll see like a section of coral that's just growing up in this like light show of colors from the entire palette, and there's beautiful things to see under here. At times as well, while you're swimming or while she's swimming, you will come across things like she has some dolphins that visit her regularly, as well as I forgot to look up the name of these creatures. Never fail. The narwhal. There's a couple of narwhals that swim up around you all, which are much smaller whales with a big pointy protrusion of bone coming from their forehead. So there's a lot of cool underwater things that you all see as well. But you have a vague understanding that it's about a 3 days journey to where you want to go. She is aware of the island itself and generally knows how to get there. And you'll kind of experience over the first little bit of time where Angashuk is kind of sharing things that the natural things around the island start to really change. So there's a sense of you kind of have to feel out the general region to get a sense for you as you're getting closer and closer. And that's almost how she searches for and finds where Auril is at any given time. And that's more under the idea as if she missed it at some point. But that's probably like the first bit of your day. Angajuk will surface every once in a while to clear out that air and to get actual fresh air. And that kind of comes about every 4 or so hours. But in this first portion of the journey, as you all are first hopping onto the back of Arl, you are approaching evening, and can kind of decide what would you like to do while you all are traveling on the back of Angashuk.
Felix is kind of looking out of the bubble and just enjoying the view of the ocean while thinking about home and everything and thinking about the journey that we've been on so far.
I feel like that's code for Felixis is about to go serial killer. What were you thinking, Brennick?
So I think Brannick would similarly be kind of he'd be interested in definitely kind of like watching, things going by. I think he would be, maybe like speaking to Angajuk, just saying, you know, um, just saying like he'll defer, he's sure that obviously she knows this um these environs better than we could, and if there's anything of you think would be of particular interest to us that you'd like to show us, I defer to your judgment. But otherwise, yeah, just kind of enjoying the ride.
Finn would be fascinated by this uh, environment that was previously inaccessible to him. So he would be pretty much at the bow, as close to the front as possible, trying to soak it all up and ask as many questions as possible about the types of creatures and locations. Coral, I've never seen coral. What's coral?
Yeah, so like in relation to that, obviously, realistically, what you're seeing is that the ocean is bright and colorful. You would have no sense as whether the coral is hard like a rock or soft like a sponge. There would be next to nothing to tell you that there's a difference between like an anemone and coral. So you would kind of wonder at times for sure if all of this stuff can just like wave in the water and with the comings and goings of the ocean. But there's definitely a lot of things that would be truly astounding about the color differences of how bright things are, especially in comparison with the experience of being inside of Icewind Dale, where you have a white earth and the color comes from the aurora above, which tends to be a color or a different color. They're still bright, they're still very vibrant colors, but the actual coral in this place is many different colors. Much of this light, by the time it gets to a different level, is well, even now you guys are approaching darkness, so it's actually like the moon's light is lighting things. So it will be like that actual white, very true colors coming from them, but everything is still somewhat stained with the kind of the greens and the blues. But her way of responding to kind of the questions and the intrigue is to certainly swim around and show you things like uh, large formations of coral and actually talking about how the rock is alive, and you'll have kind of a sense of almost like a deification and almost a reverence for the corals. Um, if you ask about the places that she wants to show you, you can kind of see very quickly that these are the things that Anga like to see when they came underwater with Engajuk. And that's what Enga Juke knows to show, is these beautiful locations where nothing necessarily looks alive, but the world is alive. And kind of things like some of the more unique animals Enga can certainly describe. Large creatures that almost suck into your flesh and try to wrap around you. Some of the dangers of traveling over the darkest, blackest part of the ocean where you can't really see without any light. There's things that will reach out and grab you. And that's kind of like the overall sense of where Engashuk's mind goes with how it sounded like both Fen and Brennick would be phrasing questions, is this like broad sense of like, this is a crazy different world, and this is what Anga always like to see about it. So as you all continue forward through this kind of part of the evening, um, there's going to be a sense where your bodies understand that you have been up and moving for quite some time. You have a potential option to certainly continue through the night and allow or keep company with Engajuk. Or when you all are ready, you could also go to bed and take a night's sleep. But you're kind of around that idea. So, assuming that everybody takes the time to kind of eventually find your own little area around the ship, I think it kind of has room for a below deck. Not really sure if there's a sleeping area there, and we've kind of got Valine almost crunched up along the back. But at some point, you all, maybe it's down part of the saddle, like the ship kind of hugs around her, and there's a bit of a deck there. Regardless, if you sleep on the deck, you guys can roll me a d20 each, please. Brennick, roll a d8 for me. And then let me get a perception check from everyone. This is disadvantage because you are all technically sleeping right now. But it's better for me than your passive. So at some point here, Fen, you are going to awaken. You are going to very quickly see that there's almost like a brown hue to kind of the reflection, kind of this bluish, dark, like blue black that the dome has held. And at some point, you're going to come to sensing a little bit of kind of like a brown hue to things. It seems a little bit strange, and it's not going to take you much more than a few moments to kind of recognize that you're almost like bobbing and twisting and turning as if you're on the high seas. But Engajuk hasn't really presented this at all. In the past swimming, there's a very soft up and down, kind of with a very slow and soft beating of her tail. But this is kind of like you're in rough seas. What is your first thought as you come to, Fen?
Yeah, Fen will awaken upon noticing and formulating the thought that the motion of the boat is different than when they were previously travel, will awaken fellow travelers. Yeah, I have a bad feeling something's not right. Is can I see the the dome still above us?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You see almost like a brownishness instead of where previously you had like blues and almost like silvery whites.
And the motion is different.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I'll awake my fellow companions again. Something is wrong. Something is not the same, and try to take a look around and see if I can discern any other uh, changes from the previous, or find out what the source of the brown is.
So what are you actually doing there? Are you just like glancing around at your surroundings?
Walk up to the nearest side and reach out.
Like you're gonna reach out into the water?
Correct.
Gotcha. Give me a Constitution saving throw. So as you reach out into the water, first you're going to feel the extreme cold as you almost instantly will cease to be able to feel with those fingers. You're going to feel a very sharp cold, just kind of like almost like a sliminess and a chill as you get up to the barrier. When you reach through, it is going to be frightfully cold that is very shocking. It's going to be one of those weird sensations of touching something cold that you feel burning until it kind of like sets in, kind of in the same way where sometimes you touch something hot and you feel freezing before it really sets in, like what's happening. And you'll have this quick moment of shock. And you're going to take 1 point of cold damage as you kind of reach through here. As you pull your hand back in, it's going to not feel quite the same as water in your hand. And you can kind of see that there's almost uh, like a viscousness to some of this. The water is a kind of weird uh, brownish hue when you pull it back inside the boat. What's everyone else doing? Is he starting to wake you up? You can feel like the boat's kind of thrashing. Everything kind of has this brown hue to it.
I think Brannick's first thought is, as you know, as Fen gets him awake and he kind of starts to see, what's, obviously something's wrong. I think his first thought is to call out for Angajuk. Like, Angajuk, what's going? Everything all right? What's going on? Um,
Melissa's kind of just stretches and looks around, and she kind of adds that, "Are we? Oh, that's mud. Are we swimming through mud?"
So when you yell out for Engajuk, you are going to hear a loud and low kind of almost like mumbled growl of "Mm, mm."
What does it you sound like someone's muffling her?
so Brannick is gonna, turning towards, as he hears this, turn and like seeing the brown on the outside and turning towards Fen. He's gonna like, he's gonna ask like, "Can I if can see that the residue that's still on his hand. Maybe try and figure out what it could be. If it's anything you might recognize.
Gotcha. So while that's still grabbing your attention, I was already kind of curious where Fen was going with it now that he has his hand kind of back. What are your thoughts, Fen?
Then is worried about being 50 leagues under the sea with a broken air bubble, so I think he would echo Brannick's call to Angajuk and to walk towards the bow of the boat to try to communicate.
Gotcha. So I think that would have Fen kind of moving away from you there, Brannick. What is your kind of thought as he seems to be ignoring this and moving closer to the bow?
Brannick would call after him again. It's like, Ben, can I see your hand? And he's going to, yeah, I think he'll just kind of follow after him and call, again.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
at that point, I didn't I didn't catch the request earlier, so yeah, I would definitely turn back to Brannick and extend my hand to show it to him.
Gotcha. And yeah, I mean, it would be perfectly fine if Fen is still moving towards the forward of the ship and almost has that hand extended back. Um, I like the idea that with things like this where you're supposed to be under pressure, you're supposed to be at a loss. So it kind of makes sense if you don't hear that. That works out perfectly for perhaps exactly what you're thinking is it's moving past the hand and back towards Engashuk. But it sounds like we essentially have Elixis um, attentive, but more or less coming to. Brennick quick to yell off for Engashuk, a muffled response that then gets the attention of Fen, who we have kind of stepping away from having reached out of the bubble back to this idea of what is happening with Engashuk. If that sounds right, what are your next thoughts as we then basically get Brennick and Fen to the bow of the ship, looking over? What are you two? What are you two going for once you get up towards the bow? Assuming Brennick's looking at the hand, would you like to do an Arcana check? Are you thinking like, is his hand okay? You could do a medicine check. What are you looking for when you get a chance to investigate that?
Yeah, I think Brannick would be more curious about the substance, less concerned with Ben's hand. Um,
Gotcha. So, assuming that he has like residue from the bubble, that might be an Arcana check. If you're looking at it for other reasons, I could see how it could be like an intelligence check against your background is criminal on Brennick.
yeah, but he's more. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
more kind of wants to know. Like he thinks maybe this stuff is unnatural. He wants to.
Yeah, so I think that's probably falling into the Arcana idea of how you would look at it. Taking a moment to see what this substance is, it doesn't take you long to recognize with a little bit of kind of like a sniff, trying to keep it away. If it has like some sort of effervescent property, you can kind of like wave it, waft it towards your face a little bit. Smells of iron, mixed with salt water, some other things. It's blood.
So Brannick will at that he'll kind of look out around the look outside again and see like so this brownish hue is kind of all around, right?
Yeah, effectively. What is Finn doing as you get to the bow of the ship?
Uh, Finn is getting a little wild-eyed as Brannick is examining his hand and calling out to Andrzejczyk again and just looking around to see if he can discern some kind of explanation for what they are witnessing.
If you're kind of trying to look outside of the bubble to see what else there might be, I think you'll go for a perception here. And we've got Valixis. What's kind of getting your attention as the two of these adventurers are heading towards the bow, calling out for Angajuk? Brennick's looking over this hand. What are you thinking?
So, she's Felicia said things that something's muffled Angerju, so she wondering if they can get Angerju, if they should get Angerju to the surface so they can get a clearer sight of what's going on.
Gotcha. How would you get Angajuk to the surface?
Oh, so she just kind of yells. So Felicia yells out to Angerju, Angerju, if you can hear us and you can still get to the surface, swim to the surface so we can get a clear view of what's going on. We may be able to help.
All right. So, as you are looking over the front of the deck, and Fen is just kind of seeing a very short distance, you can still make out Angashuk's there. You can't quite see to her face. You certainly can't look over the side and see any of her eyes at this point. Whatever this brown is something that is masking your vision. Brennick kind of coming to this realization that this is something used in spell work. It's blood, and it's blood mixed with salt water. As something is heavily bleeding outside of this ship. You hear as Valixis kind of yells over for Engajuk to surface, that you all might be able to help. You are going to hear another kind of muffled growl before the ships is still listing and kind of like twisting and turning. You can tell that Angajuk is actively doing something, also currently incapable of speaking, and at some point the ship is going to come up and up and up. Let's see. Let me get a D100 from Valixis. So you're going to kind of feel the sensation of rising up. Things get a little bit more clouded. You'll see a little bit stronger of kind of a red hue as water seems to be rushing over this field quicker, and the red kind of clumps a little bit more as you can see this blood source is probably in front of you all, and you go up to this point where Angashuk is going to start to level out, and with a big crash through the ice is going to breach and come slamming down onto the ice. And as she breaches through the actual ice level and out into the air, you will, in kind of a moment of adrenaline shot, see as the field is going to drop out. Water is going to be pushed to the sides where nothing's like splashing down on you, but there is still almost a sensation of blood being kind of pushed to the edges, and you're going to see as in Engajuk's jaw is a shark that is probably about 4 to 5 times the size of the three of you combined. And Engajuk kind of like slammed it off into the ice. The shark seems to be kind of wriggling side and side, still partially in her grasp, but it's kind of like fighting its way away, and you can kind of hear as the ice is starting to crack underneath Engajuk. Oh, what are you all thinking here?
Oh, she wanted dinner or breakfast. All right, we should probably kill that thing so she can eat it, so that we don't constantly experience this. Because yeah, she seems quite hungry.
And Fen or Brannick, what are y'all thinking here?
Brennick's seeing the shark and then thinking like of all the blood in the water. He's thinking that might be more of them attracted to the blood. We should have Angajuk put a bit of distance.
And what is Fen
Finish.
thinking?
Yeah, maybe distance is what we need.
So as you all kind of come to terms with what's going on here and kind of looking to each other to try to figure out what's going on, you're going to hear Engajuk's voice probably passing on maybe like a single syllable almost of just more. And this is going to come out of her mouth as she kind of like flaps up into the air, almost bringing her face up, and the shift is going to list over to the right side as she kind of comes down on this other shark, crashing back through the ice. The field is going to come back up around you all, and there's going to be hits from multiple sides here. I need you all to roll initiative.
Oh, you're attacked by multiple sharks. Whoops.
I like how you thought of her as the predator. You're like, oh yeah, she's hungry.
Look, in my defense, if I was in her position, I probably would have attacked a random fish, and if I was hungry. This music is giving me such a peaceful, nostalgic feeling right now.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, I forgot. This is like my chilling music. This is Studio Ghibli, I believe.
I love it. I am good with it.
It might create a problem that I didn't actually have you guys on the page that I meant to have you on for this. Battle map realistically is not going to matter here, as you guys are effectively on the ship. I think we determined you guys don't really have a way to get off.
Yeah, not unless we're less than essentially 30 feet from the surface. I'll try and risk yeah.
And do what? Hop out and stand on the ice so that one of these creatures can bust through the ice and pull us under?
Yeah, at present, you all can see two of these sharks coming in and striking. We are going to start. Got. Where did the 18 come from?
I don't know. I can't figure that out either.
What 18?
All of your initiatives are very weird, because even Brannick's didn't really fit.
I thought mine showed up as a 16 before. I thought it did.
It did. No. One of y'all showed up as an 18. I know I wrote a
Yeah, it had Fen as 18 and Brannick at 23.
and it didn't put mine on there. Yeah, it looked weird.
All right, so you effectively have an injured shark in the mouth of Angajuk, crashing down through the water. And wait, I just added. Oh my gosh, it didn't like that I deleted the token. Here, I'll get tokens now. All right, so Angajuk is crashing down through the ice with one of these creatures in her mouth, and it is going to go to, I believe, Velixis. No, my bad. One of the sharks is attacking first. Um, it is going to strike into Angajuk and bite into kind of the side near where part of the barding actually like connects around Angajuk and one of her fins, and that will take us to Lexus.
All right, so Felicia's going to.
I lost you at Felixis is going to.
Oh shoot. Felicia's going to cast a fireball at one of the shark at the closest shark to her. So
Closest shark to you is going to be the one in Angashuk's mouth.
I can still prevent the fireball from hitting you, right?
Yep.
Wow. Okay, just
I
making
believe
sure.
your skill says creature.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just hitting the shark with the fireball. I'm gonna use the third level one.
Is that correct that your feature is a creature?
It's,
Yep.
I
Sculpt
believe so.
spells is creatures.
Okay, then yeah. It's good.
Alrighty. So as you kind of form this little mote of fire in your hand and send it through the shield, you're going to see as it turns into kind of like a dark little glow of orangish brown, and it's going to fly out towards the front of Angashuk. And as it explodes, right as it gets to this shark outside of her mouth, you're going to see as the water turns into like a big like puff of darkness and air as it kind of expands and almost collapses back down on the shark, kind of being shaped basically out like a cone in front of this point. The animal is certainly injured. It's hard to tell exactly what happened in the underwater effects of the explosion, but you can definitely see that it was certainly effective against the creature. Um, and any kind of general movement around the ship or where you would like to attempt to place yourself, kind of things?
I'm gonna move closer to one of the other sides of the ship. I don't know ship speak, so like to the left side of the ship, to see if I can get sight of another shark.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, and any given time with the movement and whatnot things, you guys have a pretty solid sense of where these 3 sharks are at present. But with that, we are going to go into the shark that is currently in the jaws of Angajuk. It is going to kind of thrashing about in the mouth of Angajuk, trying to find a way free. It's going to kind of almost tear out more and more parts of its flesh as it kind of tries to make its way out, but doesn't seem to be able to break free. And that will take us to Fen. What would you like to do here, Fen?
Are there any weapons that are visible on the boat, like javelins or harpoons or any defensive measures that we can see on the boat?
You can look around with a perception check that's going to take your action. Otherwise, at this point, if you're just glancing around and not using any of your actual time, you don't see anything.
I'm going to perception for the action.
So, if you take the time to look around this boat, you see a lot of signs that reminds you that this is very kind of touristy. Anga was not about killing creatures. There are not weapons on this boat. This is a way to view the sea, not necessarily a way to impinge your will upon it.
That'll be it for me.
And that will go. What's your dex on, Brannick? You have a positive dex, right?
Yeah, +3.
Gotcha. Yep, that'll go to Brannick.
So Brannick kind of has the same idea as Velixis. He's thinking, if we can kill this thing that Angajuk's fighting, it can, free her up to fight. So he's gonna kind of move forward a bit. Doesn't want to get too close so that but trying to able to get sight of the shark in Angajuk's mouth, and as he does so, he'll throw out his hand, and you'll see a bunch of sort of darts fly out towards the thrashing shark. He's going to cast a second level magic missile.
Gotcha. I feel like that's 4 magic missiles at second level.
Yeah, 3 at first, and then +1 for each. So 4. Looks like a total of 14.
Yeah, so you will watch as these 4 little points of light. By the way, you can always flavor your spells differently while you're casting them. But you will otherwise watch as these 4 little points of light are going to form up, and as they zip away, pass through the field, very little changes as they pass to the other side, and one after another. Assuming on some level you're kind of looking at like a facial feature kind of the shark, I feel like it's very human for us to focus on those teeth, but very quickly you're going to watch as these 4 little points of light all enter into this creature in kind of the same little like thumbprint area of its face, and you're just going to watch as this creature certainly is going to kind of slow for a moment. It's definitely a sizable amount of damage. It is otherwise still kind of thrashing in the mouth of Engajuk.
Yeah, and as he casts, he's just gonna kind of back away to where he was before, saying, doesn't think this thing can like reach him, but he's, not want to take any chances. So he'll try to like kind of almost stay near the middle as much as he can.
My bad, I forgot to also mark the creature there as actually bloodied. So one of the other sharks is going to crash into. Oh wait, I forgot to roll. Like that. Yeah. Crashing into Angajuk is going to bite down and as well kind of tear away a chunk of flesh as this creature starts to shake onto the side of Angajuk. And then that will be Angajuk. You are going to, I think, see a pretty similar kind of sight at how she struck it on the ice at the top of her kind of arch to bring you up and outside of the water. But you're going to see and feel kind of a similar motion as Angajuk kind of just like almost arches her back and then extends it out to kind of whip the shark kind of deeper into her jaws as she starts to bite down. Yeah, is able to snap into it and crunch down further and harder into this creature. And then she's going to whip out her tail at one of the others and kind of smack away the other. And that will take us to the shark she just kind of slapped away. Yeah, I think it's going to check who it stabs at. It's going to try to bite into Angajuk. It is going to be successful, kind of biting into her tail as it kind of grasps out, or as she kind of grasps out at it. And that will take us to Velixis.
Okay, so Alexis is going to. Where's that? That dude. Okay. Wait a minute. Did I just cast Fireball twice last turn? No. I'm sorry. That confused me for a moment because it's saying I casted it twice. But she's gonna aim her spell book out and throw another fireball out towards the two sharks that are here.
Roll a percentile for me.
Roll a percentile.
Yeah.
So did I just roll a D100 or a D20?
D100. Yeah, my bad. The percentile is the D100. Alrighty. So you can try to target the sharks, but you are sure to hit one of them. Which is the one that you want to make sure hit?
I want to make sure to hit the one that's bloodied.
Gotcha. So roll for the fireball. So for the second time, you are going to watch as you form this little mote of light. it passes through the barrier and it kind of dims some. And as it extends out and gets closer to your target area, you're going to watch as the expanse kind of explodes out into that dark puff of black smoke that kind of like wafts inside of this water, and you can see as it shapes around the side of Angajuk from one side to the other. The explosion's directed forward, and you can see a little bit of it kind of striking out at the creature's tail as it tries to get away. There's some effect to its tail, kind of blast a little bit darker in kind of the blast of this explosion. The creature in the back does not seem nearly as affected, and by not nearly as effective, I mean none at all.
After that, she's that'll be it for her turn. She's not gonna make any movements.
And from Velixis, we are going to go to the creature still struggling in her mouth, is going to try to break itself free, and will continue to kind of struggle against the grasp of Angajuk. And what would Fen like to do?
So at this point, Fenn's gonna pull out the longbow. And say his little mantra, I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me. And shoot at the bloodied shark with 2 arrow shots.
Gotcha. These are going to be at disadvantage as you shoot into the water. First one's just going to kind of zip off to the side, and it just kind of gets lost. You can feel like this erraticness to how they fly once they touch the water. The second one seems to stab into the creature. With your extra damage is one more. And it certainly seems to stick into its flesh.
And I am going to apply a death strike to that one as well for a key point.
Yeah, so normally I want you to decide that when you find out that it is a hit. Like I want you to add that before I describe what happens with the hit normally. Because it says when you hit a target.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say at that point we kind of place it into a little bit more of like some of the soft tissue, and you kind of place it through this creature's eye. At this point, you are going to see that the creature is indeed mortally wounded. Do you know why I want you to say that, like when you hit with the weapon, though? I'm not trying to penalize you.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but at the same time, like, I have to wait to see if I hit to apply the death strike.
Yeah, yeah. But I want you to do it as soon as you find out that you hit, because I'm normally not describing everything until you're done attacking. Like I'm trying to do those descriptions like that where we're kind of like moving away from it and into your bonus actions. If you're doing a death strike, as soon as you think you hit, or even saying I'm going to death strike if I get a hit out of this, um, that's
Okay.
my general
Yeah.
point. Is before I describe what actually happens, I feel like it should already be a death strike.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Brennick, what would you like to do?
Yeah, I think Braddock is as Fenn is like drawing and firing off his bow, he's just seeing this thing not going down yet, even with like the multiple blasts of the fireball, he's gonna um throw out his hand again. You're gonna see similar kind of a few of these darts. So kind of like they'll like fly out from his fingers and they'll kind of like go off in different directions until they all kind of like come back around and like converge on like the single spot at this same uh same shark in Angajuk's mouth. Going to cast magic missile at first level this time.
Gotcha. Let's go for 3 of them. So as they ping into that point and they all kind of reconverge on this creature, you will see as its attempts to break free of the mouth of Angajuk are going to uh, get less and less forceful. And you can almost see as this creature over the next few seconds is going to go from less forceful, kind of like lunges and twists, to almost little twitching motions that are very quick, but not really like strong behind it, to not really moving inside of the mouth of Angajuk. Anything else at present?
Nope. He's trying to. He's kind of like he's like darting forward as he casts it, and then trying to like kind of back up into like the center of the little bubble.
So another one of the creatures out on the side of Engashuk is going to kind of like move away and lunge back in towards the whale's body. Will grasp in on her, tearing away a little flesh. And it's going to go to Engashuk. So the first one, really don't think it matters which, is going to go for the whale on her tail as she tries to bite into it. She will be able to uh, grasp it. And she kind of, let's see. And then she's going to mash with her tail towards the other one as she pulls that one off of her tail. And that strike is going to be solid as well. And that will take us to another of them. Give me 1 second here. All right, so this is the one now that has just been pulled into her mouth. It is going to try to break itself free. You can kind of see the same continued motion of her kind of thrashing, and just enough to hold onto it, and it's going to go to Velixis. What would you like to do, Velixis?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Or maybe we could only hear when you said, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, the cat pulled out my cord just now. That's why I was like confused. All right, so let's see here. Felix is going to cast a magic miss. No, she's going to cast an ice knife with her at second level at the shark that's like on the bottom.
Gotcha, that one's in her jaws presently.
Oh wait, nah. Then no, she's gonna cast it at the one at the top.
Gotcha, go for it. Alrighty, so this is going to kind of pass out of the. I think you create an actual shard of ice. So you kind of form this ice in your hand, shoot it out at like velocity towards the shark, leaping and like biting into her sides. And as it pierces through the shield, you're going to see as it almost leaves like a line of white bluishness behind it, as it's kind of freezing a small path through the water. It is going to hit into the shark and you're going to see as the water explodes into a white and blue little frozen like pyramid almost inside of the actual waters. This blast kind of forms behind this. And you're going to see. Yeah, I think the shark's still looking pretty good. Both of the sharks are definitely injured, but neither of them really is like struggling in a bloodied condition at present. And if that is good for you, it will go to Fen.
Okay, Fen is going to take aim at the one that's at the side that Volix has just tried to hit, and make another longbow attack. If it does hit, I'm going to apply. Well, I'm going to bonus action. Can say shot first attack, and if it hits, I'm going to apply both Death Strike and Stunning Strike to it.
Gotcha. So you can go ahead and make that shot. First one is just going to fly past, kind of like whirling through the water, and it almost stops before it even gets to the creature. The second one is going to kind of whirl around in the water before it just kind of strikes into the creature's flesh and just like washes away to the side with no momentum left to actually pierce through its flesh.
Carapace.
That should then take us to Brennick.
Yeah, so Brennick, seeing another shark in Angajuk's mouth, is going to just similar to Valixis and Fen, is just going to try to help Angajuk out, and he will. This time, he's going to cast a. He's going to move. He's going to move forward a bit. Um, not getting like right next to the shark, but he's going to try to cast. He's just going to cast a firebolt.
Gotcha. Roll to hit with that. So as you form this little mote of fire inside of your hand and it kind of blazes up, you can start to send it out towards this front shark in the jaws of Angajuk. And as it passes through the shield, you'll see there's kind of like a fizzle and bubbles start to kind of float up behind this thing as it flies through the water, and it is going to smash into the shark, and you just kind of see this like sizzle of more bubbles and then nothingness.
All right. Yeah, that's all for Brennick.
So this next one is going to crash back into Angajuk, reaching out for a bite. I really feel like these things will always hit each other. Grabbing into a chunk of her flesh and tearing it away, and then it will be Angajuk. She's going to do the same kind of like flipping her back to kind of bite back down into the shark that is in her jaws. And what did I do with this one last time? I think that's all it was. Doing a solid kind of grab back into the other one, and then tail swatting out at the other shark that is off on her side. And that one will as well be effective. And I think that will take us to another shark. It is going to try to break free of Angashuk's jaws. Bam. And that's where it will be able to swim itself free. And I think that will take us to Velixis.
Okay, so Felix is going to cast Magic Missile at the shark that's in the upper at the top.
Gotcha. What level magic missile?
Second level.
Gotcha. So 3 more. So you watch as these 4 little motes pass through the shield, staying just as bright as they fly out into the darkness of the water and smash into the creature that's biting into Angajuk's side. Anything else from you? Otherwise, we go on to Fen.
Oh, that's it from her.
Same thing into the northern shark.
Yep, I'm going to say my little mantra and take aim at the first one.
As Fen is going to fire, Brannick like just like kind of like very gently places a hand like on his shoulder, and like Fen will almost see like in his mind's eye as he's like aiming the shot like exactly where to aim, and I'm gonna give him a 17 on the shot. My portent dice.
Gotcha. So the first one's going to be a hit. Just roll like a normal shot here so we can take the damage from it. And then doing the double tap with Stunning Strike and Death Strike.
Correct.
All right, so the shot itself is for 18 damage. Well placed in kind of like the soft tissue towards kind of the back of the creature's kind of skull area. You are very quickly going to see as it doesn't seem to react to like the pressure points that you were kind of hoping to do. But overall, yeah, it's still a solid strike into the creature. I think you then have one more shot.
Correct.
Second one is a solid hit, doing another 8 damage as it too sinks into the same part of this creature's head.
Actually, another 11 with the Kensei shot.
Got it.
And Stunning Strike didn't seem to work, so I'm going to pass on that. That's it for me.
And it will go to Brennick.
Yeah, and Brannick is just following up, essentially like firing off another firebolt into the same shark. Trying to, I should say.
Hey, take back one of your key points. I was pretty sure, but I had to look. Stunning Strike is only for melees.
You are correct.
As that firebolt leaves the shield, it's just going to fizzle into the water and disappear.
Yeah, and Brannick's just gonna shout like, "Angers, you swim," and that's it.
All right, so I rolled a 9, which is one of the sharks is going to crash through the shield and bite out at Fen. And I rolled a 3 for a 12 to hit, should miss you.
Yep, AC 18.
Yep. So you're just going to see as, yeah, the shark that was just kind of in that area, like kind of swims forward, and all of a sudden it is going to kind of blast through this shield, and as quick as it snaps down its jaw, this creature is back outside of the field. And Engajuk is going to right out towards the same one that just got out of her mouth. As she grasps it back into her mouth, she's going to whip her tail around at the one that's kind of coming out of the field. Those two will hit, and the one that just got bit back down into is going to continue to try to fight its way out. Yeah, it's that close. Bam. Yep. So it is going to bust itself free again. And that's going to take us back to Velixis.
She's gonna hit this creature here that is up top with a ice knife.
All right, that one at this point is mortally wounded after her tail strike to it. A lot of bookkeeping with the three of them, like in a row. But if that changes anything, if you're still going to ice knife, you can definitely get it rolled.
Oh yeah, I was still gonna ice knife it.
Yeah, that is a solid strike. Pretty similar situation where you kind of form this little like shard of ice, and it starts to fly out of your wrist through the shield into the water, leaving a little frozen like snow in the water to melt. And as it pierces into the creature this time, the ice remains intact before you see the explosion just kind of inside of its skull, as the skull kind of expands, and there's just like a little brown kind of hint of a mist of all of this blood of the creature's skull as it kind of explodes into a frozen little ball and then starts to kind of collapse back around it and melt away pretty quickly as this creature's body starts to. I don't know how sharks keep themselves buoyant. I feel like most of them have active like buoyancy that they almost keep in their bodies. It's going to kind of like just tense up, but I think otherwise float roughly where it is. And that will take us to Ben. There's the shark. I think it just got bit back into and got away again.
So Fen will briefly turn back to his compatriots and say, apparently that's a thing, and say his little Kensei shot mantra and attempt to strike out with the bow again.
There's a part of me that thinks it would be hilarious if a shark had fallen through the shield, eaten a Velixis, and just disappeared just as quickly.
I keep thinking of the scene from Back to the Future 2 with the 3D Jaws at the movie theater where it comes out and it eats Marty.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I kind of think of with that one.
I was thinking of that scene from Deep. I think it's Deep Blue Sea, where like Samuel L. Jackson gives like the big rousing speech, and then the shark just like jumps out and eats him.
That's
Oh
definitely
god.
spot on. I feel like those little viewing pools, like in the abyss and whatnot, like this, are where you get into the very creepy aspects of the way I see that, like, bubble around you. It's from the right angle, it's clear. From the wrong angle, it's just like a silver sheen, and you can't see anything outside of there. So it's always like kind of like a head on, looking at it at like a shallow angle, you kind of like lose out on it. So that next arrow's going to sink in for 8 more, and shot number 2. I think I just saw that they made a second one of those. Um, Deep Blue Sea. It was always a movie. Yeah, the second one's going to miss. It's just going to kind of, as soon as it hits the viscosity of the water, just kind of whirls off to a side before just kind of like floating about. And that will take us to Brennick.
Yeah, so Brennick's eyes would have gone very wide when the shark like crashed through the bubble and kind of then just kind of narrowly avoided getting bitten into. So he wants to put an end to this, and so he's going to kind of seeing this last remaining shark is going to again throw out his hands, and this time he's going to cast a third level magic missile, just like throwing everything he's got at this thing.
Is it the monster of 5? 3, or 10, 18?
Yep, looks like 18.
So I think with that one, you are going to watch as these kind of ping into its head, and you start to see as they are caving in a chunk of its skull that would protect its brain cavity. This creature is most certainly mortally wounded. And after Brennick will be Angajuk. I don't think it can live through this. Yeah, even the 3 would hit from that. 2 more strikes being bit at and kind of smashed with Angajuk's tail. Angajuk can end the last of these sharks that seems to have been feeding on her. I think kind of as she kind of comes to and starts to come off of her own little epinephrine, that's the wrong word, but it's the right chemical adrenaline rush. As she comes off of this adrenaline rush, she's just going to kind of utter into the kind of the bubble around you all as she kind of speaks out. He came for me. I'm glad you woke up. It was helpful. Oh, but I tend to win in the end. And you just kind of might recall some of the cuts and scratches and these like white marks in her deep gray blue flesh, where you can see like she gets cut, stabbed, and scraped up pretty regularly. This is definitely like looking at the back of a manatee in Florida kind of thing, where you can see all like the wounds just displayed in her flesh. They never heal up. They always leave a scar behind. But I think this is a solid place for us to take a break. We can pick back up at the hour and kind of continue on with this night's rest, the first night in the sea with Engajuk. And I think the second time you guys have been attacked while you were on Engajuk's back, right? I think the first time there was a battle as well.
Giant
I
squid,
think
if I
so.
recall correctly.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking.
But I think eventually like it's tried to get away, and Angajuk is like raring to go after it. So yeah, kind of like at the end of the battle, it's like I guess Angajuk, she knows how to take care of herself. She's been plying these waters for who knows how long. So
It's hard to imagine what a shark would think when it realizes it's not the alpha predator.
I don't even think it registers in its wiring.
That's kind of why I was thinking. I don't think the sharks have a chance to run. It was almost like how vicious they are. One thing about the sharks that actually make me think that they would never run even, and I think would actually make things more interesting, is that the sharks have blood frenzy. The shark has advantage on melee attack rolls against any creature that doesn't have all of its hit points. I think what that would be more interesting as, and how I feel like I might play sharks in the future is that they have advantage once something is missing hit points, but effectively that they go as reckless, where you would have advantage against them as well. I feel like that's kind of the thing that would sit, in part because even if they were going reckless, like effectively that's what it would become. Even if they were going reckless, you are almost always at disadvantage because you're like trying to swing your axe through the water, or you're trying to shoot your bow underwater, or in this case, you're passing through a different barrier into a different substance. Um, that was one of the things, like trying to explain like your spells are affected by this barrier as well. But I feel like the idea that the sharks are like raging barbarians fits really well with what they are.
Yeah, the only other thing I was thinking of maybe trying was trying to create an illusion of like a wounded, like easier target somewhere off in the water and see if it would like draw their attention for us to escape. But then by the time I thought of it, it seemed like okay, I think we should be able to, you know, win this. So I didn't end up trying it. But that was the only other thing I can think of because they're not gonna like even I feel like even like wounded, they're just like in such a frenzy. They don't they attack until they kill or they're killed.
Illusions are an intelligence save, right?
I think it's like an intelligence to know it's an illusion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where when it really comes down to it, that's the type of thing. Again, it's still kind of meta knowledge, but you already said you had the idea, so it's not a problem. I feel like to talk about this, but Brennick doesn't yet know this. But the idea that a shark would turn for it, I think is perfectly acceptable because there's blood in the water. Um, it's almost sensing those things. Uh, I think the chance of how long it would go for might be a different story because sharks do have kind of that electrical sense of where something actually is. Um, but I feel like that's one of those things that, depending on how much you know, you would kind of know how effective it is. So, like with a normal person, like a normal human in this day and age, I think it's kind of viable to say, like, you can expect it'll probably trick the shark, but it just may not trick it for long. And I think that's where I would kind of like almost play it like the first time's a straight roll, but once it actually gets in there and kind of strikes at it, it's not going to last. Um, and that's for multiple reasons that I'm not going to share. But other than that, like that would have been like a potential like cool way. Uh, One thing that's funny about being underwater is how many of these creatures share the same movement speed. So it's not even a question of running. Somebody kind of has to fight to the death or give up.
Yeah, part of the problem too, I was thinking is like once they're all so focused, because with minor illusion, I can only create like a sound or an image. I can't do both. So like if I created it off in the distance, there's like they're so focused on the fight that they're not going to see it. And I feel like also sharks have like a super strong sense of smell, and so like they
Yeah.
would be not not taken in because they wouldn't smell the prey. So and like so if they were
And
distracted, like
that's
you said,
kind
it
of
would be
precisely
only
it. It's like, does that one sense trick them for a moment before they actually take in all of the information and go back to it?
right. Yeah. All right, I'll be back in a few minutes.
So, as everyone becomes aware that the sharks are all dead at this point, kind of floating, remaining relatively buoyant to where they passed, you kind of have a little bit of a trail between each one. You probably can't see the first, but you can just see the second one, and then you're basically on top of, by the time it gets killed, the final kill without really trying to put more distance between yourselves. But what do you all think of as you realize you're out of this combat? Is swim away Angashuk still that top priority?
Um, yeah, I mean, Brannick with less like urgency in his voice would. I mean, probably Angajuk, is aware of um, that sharks or other things might be attracted to this blood, but he'll like suggest kind of um, and not as an urgent voice. Perhaps we should find another. Well, he doesn't know if Angajuk like sleeps. He doesn't really know about whales to that extent. So, but he'll suggest, perhaps we should leave this mess behind a bit.
Make a persuasion. I think, yeah, you'll have Angashuk kind of agreeing with a yes, yes, moving on. Oh, swimming.
Um,
Go ahead if you had a thought there.
yeah, I guess after that, Brannick would also just be curious. Like, you'd want to move to like look at the this bubble where the shark burst through and see does it look like there's any like lasting damage? Is there water leaking in from the
No,
spot
yeah,
where?
my apologies. I probably could have described that a little bit better. That was definitely a very weird happening because the shark tumbled through. It basically swam up to the bubble. There's no water once it gets into the bubble. All of a sudden, it kind of slams down on the deck and bites for the closest thing that it saw, which was Finn, who also easily kind of dodged out of its way as it was like falling through and back like into the water. But it's definitely a weird occasion of that shark went from an existence where it doesn't really fall to like tumbling through the bubble and then back out into the water with a splash. No, it doesn't even splash because the shield prevents that from happening. But it's like the water was removed from around the shark that would have otherwise swam through.
Okay, yeah. So Brannick will be kind of like he'll kind of like be under his breath, like fascinating. It's like he figures there must be some sort of magic, perhaps similar but more powerful to like the magic he knows with like his shielding spell. But seeing that there doesn't seem to be any lasting effects, then he will uh, yeah he'll be
Roll an
satisfied with that.
arcana. I think that you might understand that there are similar spells that have been worked about breathing underwater, but you definitely have a curiosity with this, as this does seem kind of like a different kind of magic. But I think you're probably familiar enough that druids are a little bit more like priests, where they receive their magic necessarily than they are creating it. Um, you definitely create magic and have things that are similar enough, but I don't think in particular the wizard has any spells that are quite like this.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely certainly an astounding extra view at how that bubble works when you see a creature that's falling through it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely would he be very interested? Just like from a you know like even like a theoretical perspective.
Any other thoughts at present? Otherwise, if you are kind of returning to bed as Angajuk pushes on, I think there will be a certain amount of. I am pretty sure whales swim automatically. I don't think they have to think about, oh man. I don't know if they sleep, but I don't think they sleep because they need air. But I don't think they just sleep on the surface. I didn't actually think to look into it. I just assumed Engashuk was on kind of like the I sleep for 20 minutes every 4 hours kind of thing. She's pretty hardcore into fit. Oh man, I can't think of it as well.
So apparently, whales can essentially turn half their brain off, and that's the half that sleeps. The other half kind of runs on autopilot.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
So
it says
it's
they
probably
rest.
like,
I just like Googled it real quick, and it says like they sleep. Essentially, they rest one half of their brain at a time.
yeah. I mean, that's craziness, but that makes sense. So yeah, she basically kind of explains this. Like she'll always be good to keep going. Sometimes just a little bit quieter. I think that's probably her understanding of it is I I just keep swimming and just like a little bit of a thought like things just slow and feel longer for me. I feel like that also probably means that most of the time they're resting half their brain. They might not use their whole brain like other things might. But kind of like passing on that, you all can kind of swim into the evening. This is a weird kind of moment where you guys can continue your rest. You can get up and kind of lose out a little bit now, but you now have an understanding that kind of Angashuk's world is 24/7. Is everybody returning to sleep?
Like Brannick might have a nightmare or two about sharks, but he will. Yeah, he figures he'll try to get some sleep if he can.
Ben only has to trance, so he is going to go to the bow, sit in a meditative position, and try to do trance.
And Ballista's is definitely gonna get some sleep.
So yeah, the next was that everybody was already asleep there. Yeah, so the next hour or so are going to pass by pretty quickly. After a few more hours here, Engajuk will kind of start to actually speak, and you guys will see the start of kind of the switch of the colors coming from above. The aurora will shine on the top of the ice in a similar way. Hangajuk is not always deep, so sometimes coming up, sometimes going lower, you have more of this light, but you'll start to see the aurora overhead kind of calling you back to this kind of level here. And when you all awake, everybody can take a long rest here. What sort of thoughts do you all have going into the second week or second day? You guys like come up to surface as everybody's waking, and Engaju kind of brings you to the top of the ice. Um, would oh, that would be a cruel way to wake you up, actually. That's an interesting thought about trying to have a sleep here. Is every 4 hours she's coming to the surface and you're getting hit by those winds again. That's going to be a very weird thing for your sleep. But at some point, she'll kind of bring you all close to the surface where you have the most of this light without actually like slamming you all through it unawares. But as everybody's awakening, Angajuk's been traveling through the night. If you more or less end up just keep. What were you thinking there?
I was gonna say, Ballista's waking up at the little bit of light she sees. She's kind of just looking around at the ocean, just bearing out. She's walking over towards like the bound, just bearing out, looking at everything, and seeing if there's any creatures or anything around that we need to keep that needs to be kept an eye out on right now.
Roll a perception check for me. So where Angashu kind of has you all at this point is close to the surface. You see kind of like this mirror-like color show above you. Looking around you, you're in shallower waters. You can spot a few different areas where in this at least like shallower area you see stuff that reminds you of like humans and generally the humanoids. um it's hard to really call out all of the shapes, but let's say on some level you feel like you can spot like an area that seems to have like the bow of a ship almost, something created out of like coral that kind of grows out looking kind of like a ship.
Hmm. Um, but let's ask if we can ask Andrew if we can get a closer look at that at the object.
So, what are Finn and Brennick thinking as Velixis kind of draws Angashuk's attention over towards what she sees? Kind of the same general idea. You can make out what seems like perhaps the frame of a ship, kind of created out in coral.
Yeah, Brannick was almost thinking like he was going to ask about like if Angus you could like if there were like shipwrecks, but as Velixis like he doesn't say anything, and as Velixis kind of points this out, he'll um basically second Velixis's idea as like yeah he would like to that looks interesting, so he'd like to get a closer look as well.
And does that catch Finn's attention at all?
Yeah, and Fen, thinking along the lines of Brannick, will turn to him and say that maybe there are some other sites that were not. What was the name of the priestess?
Anga, I think.
Oh, yeah. I know he had been taking us to places that she liked to go to, but maybe there were some other places that would be beneficial to adventurers such as ourselves who are tasked with our quest. Maybe not the the oohs and ahs sites, but shipwrecks and the like.
Gotcha. So as Angajuk starts to answer to Elixis and starts to swim over towards this initial little crash site, you're going to see she kind of swims closer to it. It looks more and more like a ship. The straight lines are like right there underneath the coral to see. And after a few moments, like in this process of swimming closer and getting a better look at this little area, uh, Angajuk kind of like will, oh, yes, there's many places. Oral's Island is filled with them, but there are others. Places where your kind have changed things.
Do you know if there's anyone that lives in this at this little area right now, or is it just has it this area just been left here?
The sea floor teems with life. There are many things who live here.
Do you think it'd be too much trouble if we were to take a quick look?
Like, she's already swam you over to that spot. You all are much closer to that boat as is.
And sorry if I miss it. Is this boat like near the surface or is it submerged or like half?
I'd say at this point you can still see some of the remainders of the light from above, but you're probably getting into the deeper depths of how far you can see. So I just leave it
That
now. I think that. What are you thinking there, Rashad?
sorry, I don't know why I did a perception check. That was an accident. I was wiping something off my keyboard and it rolled a perception check.
Gotcha. Yeah, while you're just trying to see here, you're probably at the edge of that light, which you guys can vaguely kind of know it's like close to the surface. It's hard to really tell when you're under there, but it's effectively, I think, like 50 to 60 feet deep is usually where most light kind of breaks in the water.
Fen will ask Gazuk, is there any way for you to extend the air bubble to include another vessel?
Ooh, that would be nice.
Magic of the. I don't even think she would know magic. The ship is of Anger's creating. I just wear it.
Felix is gonna flip through her spell book real quick to see if she has a spell for water breathing. I don't have a spell that can help us breathe on the water just yet. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, it's the cold that'll get you.
I'll be good with the cold. It's the breathing for me.
Ask Angerzu if it's possible to, since the barrier is not solid and things can pass in and out of it, is there any way to swim close enough and tilt to include part of the ship in the bubble?
I don't think Engaju can like swim to a side. Like I feel like it has to be kind of vertical with most of what it's doing. So it can't like swim upside down. Um Assuming that you can get close to the ship with Engajuk trying to like tilt to the side, which again I'm not sure how much it can do that. You guys can get close enough to the ship. I'm not sure if you can get anything out of it. If you guys don't have magic to get through the water here, I think in the long run these are spoilers for things you can come back for.
Yeah, we may have to come back unless we. I mean, the only other thing we could do is try to swim over and get and see if we can get inside where there might possibly be some air pockets for us to look around. But otherwise, we may have to wait to come back for it. Pretty much
You're
just
the only one who could survive the water temperature.
Judging from the coral growth. Well, Brannick has no idea how fast coral grows, but likely been here for some time. Perhaps, yes, perhaps we should, perhaps we can come back some later time when we're a bit more prepared for such a venture.
Agreed. Willis kind of sadly agrees, and um, we should mark this on our this little area on the map so that we can get back here.
I'm afraid I've no real idea where we are. The water. I wasn't keeping track. How far we are from shore?
Angazuk, could you find this place again if we required it?
I feel like her answer will be kind of along the lines of she has many places where she stops. This is one of them. You saw it from nearby. We could remember together.
Duly noted.
So we give it a name so that it can help, so we can. It'll be easier to remember the location. I feel like if we name it, it'll be easier to remember than to just say to that ship because there's plenty. There's probably plenty of ships somewhere in in the sea. So naming it might help as well.
Might as well name it the coral covered ship.
The coral covet.
Shipwreck, I suppose. Coral covered shipwreck.
That sounds likely to do. We in agreement with that?
Sounds fine to me. Yes.
Alrighty. From henceforth, this area shall be known as the Coral Covered Shipwreck. We'll be back for you again soon, Coral Covered.
Let me have a persuasion from Fen. And I think roll a d6 for me. So one of the last things that you were saying was kind of about some of the other ones. And I think somebody had said something to the effect, and I still think it was Fen, of there might be other ships that we could find out there. And as you guys are kind of talking about like noting this one and calling it that, Ankajuk is going to start to surface, take a breath of fresh air, and kind of return to swimming, as has been kind of the overall. And she's going to swim off, and this time, as she spends most of this day kind of moving between places to show you, she now starts to show you the different crashed ships that are along the way, the different signs of your people, and how you've changed things. Uh, roll a D100 for me. Again with Finn. So, over the course of the next 6 hours, she is going to show you 6 more vessels underneath the ocean, just trapped by the water. So
Are we sorry, are we able to make out at all like what kind of ships they might be? Like, do they seem to be like merchant vessels, whaling ships? Um, I mean, I'm not a sailor, so I would have a very limited understanding of different types. But
I would say most of the time it's probably difficult to tell. I think anybody who actually has kind of a background with water and sailing might be more likely to give you like a difference between them. But I feel like it would be perfectly acceptable to at times see stuff um, where some are definitely whaling boats, some are definitely cargo vessels. I think that's probably the big things that come here is cargo vessels and whalers. And I feel like pirates would effectively have one of those kind of boats, not likely to have come in something separate. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's a third kind of style, but there's definitely whalers here. When you came here with Helka, part of what she had warned you all about was don't bring up that we are trading with whalers. Like she was very clear that that was a secret that Angus did not know. Versus, like you guys know that there's shipping vessels that come to deliver things to Revel's End. I believe you guys discovered the Duchess was actually one of those vessels that, again, it would have been more of a merchant kind of vessel. Um, with, I guess it's kind of holds instead of. I guess really that's probably one of the big differences. Is almost always the hold. One's more lived in by humans, and the other one's probably just to hold catches.
yeah, and I imagine I guess too with like given the conditions, there's probably a limited number of types of ships that could actually make it about these waters. You know, like for the limit, I would assume like limited amount of time during the year. I mean, like before the whole, rhyme and stuff. But there would still be a fairly limited types of ships that could actually um, make it out here.
Yeah. So I don't want to be like limiting to the actual possibility of all of these shipwrecks because effectively there are tons of evidence of it. But some of the ones that would be more intact would actually be something where I could like show you some ships. But for what it is worth, I think until you all have like a viable solution for how to go through them, at this point, these are all just kind of teasers for like if you use magic, you could do this. Um, but like the ones that are very intact, you would kind of see things like that where I don't think that hull would give too much away other than it seems like a kind of traditional ship um, built construction, of this time frame.
Right. Yeah.
And then some would be, I mean, I think this is almost the exact same one, uh, the exact same structure as the East Haven ferry, which I don't think would be the same kind of boat, but I feel like it would kind of belie the actual, like similar technologies, because up until these 3 or so years ago, Icewind Dale wasn't cut off. It would probably have winters that they're cut off, but up until recently, they would actually have summers where they would have much more contact with the rest of the world. That's how they made all of their money, getting rid of the scrimshaw and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like they would have like a window during the year where, and then at some point the ice like freezes up, and then you have to wait until the next sailing season or whatever.
So if you guys continue on across that day, it is just a kind of constant stream of Enga has a weird sort of excitement because you can tell she's showing people stuff that was almost her secret. This would not have been the type of things that she necessarily would like go out of her way to show Enga in the past, but Angajuk still like knew where they were. So it's not until you guys kind of change that way of thinking about them that she kind of has that same kind of joy in the way she shows these off. Think for what it is worth, you guys can basically know that there are approximately 11 of these that are on the path that you've taken that day. When it comes around time for everyone to rest, what sort of thoughts do you all have going forward in this evening, knowing that at times Engajuk comes into danger?
We should probably have someone keep watch this time. Um, because that was very unexpected. I'm not going to front. I actually thought being underwater would be a little bit safer, but I guess it kind of set my mind that Angadru does have her enemies as well.
I agree. Keeping a watch would probably be a good idea. At least so we're a little less surprised should something happen.
I agree. I know Angajuk said she has many things that will try to test her, but she can survive in these waters while we cannot. Not disrespecting the Velixis. Your physiology gives you an advantage that we do not have.
So Engajuk is going to kind of respond to a comment from Velixis where, as you guys are kind of going over this, you'll just hear, "There's bad people. We can't judge us all by the few." And then she'll kind of like go on droning about some of the pretty things that you can still see around. Generally, still being like a proud tourist chauffeur, kind of telling you the tour of London kind of thing.
Agreed. And I feel like it'd be better to have that away, to have someone watch that away next time. You're not trying to fight something off while we're sleeping. Because I feel like that's partially our fault. Even though you said you always win in the end, the fact that we're here, we still should be someone should have been awake to help you from the beginning instead of just using you the way we did. So I would like to apologize for that. Well, which that being said, Velicious does offer us to take the first watch.
I can take the second.
And with the trance, I can take the third and final.
Yep, so you guys can all head off to sleep in a pretty similar fashion there. And we can start off with some perception checks from Felixis. And let's go for So I think on your first watch, Felixis, you're going to um, how do you spend your watch? Are you hanging out with Engajuk? Are you more or less rolled up next to the others, just trying to look up to the sky? Let me have you describe that before I describe what happens here.
Okay, so Felix is kind of sitting at the front of the boat, hanging out with Ingaju. Occasionally, occasionally she'll basically she'll circle around to check the surrounding area for any like sharks or anything else that may think it can try to make a snack out of Ingaju or try its luck. And then she comes back and continues to just conversate with Ingaju about the ocean.
How long do you think you give yourself between these little cycles where you kind of walk around to check?
I'd say about every 30 minutes.
Gotcha. Roll a d12 for me, please. So while you are kind of hanging out, probably roughly about a hour or so into your watch, just kind of getting back up to the bow of the ship and kind of returning to this conversation, um, I don't think you would really recognize for Angajuk that you don't have the same view. And maybe even while you're kind of walking back towards that same point, you're going to hear kind of this elated excitement as Angajuk, in a similar way, is going to kind of display another ship to you. Um, as you cross into view of this ship, crashed in shallower waters, probably about 40 or so feet deep, you are going to see that there's movement aboard this ship. I want you to make a, let's see, wisdom saving throw, please. So as Angashuk swims by this ship and you see a little bit of movement inside, you're going to see a haunting face kind of inside of your mind's eye that almost gets frozen into your vision out from Angashuk. And as you're looking at this thing, it seems humanoid. It seems like a woman, a young woman. All of a sudden, its face is going to start to change and alter, where fear and dread start to well up inside of you. And as you pass by, you're just going to be stricken, effectively frightened. You won't get closer to this thing, but Angajuk kind of swims by, and this kind of happens. What are you thinking? How do you recover from seeing like this horrific face of somebody, young female humanoid, trapped inside of the ship?
Um, well, it's kind of like stumbles in shock, and she's kind of shakes her head. It's like, and she peers over, and with the image still stuck in her head, she asks Angajuk if she's ever noticed anyone on the ship, and she kind of also tries to describe what the creature's face that she's seen.
I know people. You're above. You cannot be down here. I don't think she seems to understand what you mean, or perhaps she's never seen anybody inside of these.
Alright, so with her response, well, I'm not sure. I think something or someone may be over there. Are there any sea creatures down here that can use? And Melissa kind of just shakes her head again, still with the image in her mind of that creature. She asks, "Is there any creatures down here that may be able to use magic or cast spells that you may know of? Because I'm not sure if you can see her, but there's someone there."
I think maybe roll an Arcana is kind of what you're thinking about if you can kind of recognize perhaps a little bit more of it as you're trying to look at it. Um, and your brain's kind of thinking of it more. I don't think you have a great understanding of what you've seen, but I think it should be enough that you can at least recognize that, like, this is a spirit bound. It was like a creature that should be on solid earth, and you're seeing it underwater. The way a lot of creatures die, they can be bound to where they die from. And perhaps this is some sort of spirit that is alive in that ship, but in an undead sort of way. But otherwise, effectively, Angajuk is swimming by this place as she kind of shows it to you. Just kind of pointing out that there's even more while you all sleep, kind of thing. Are you doing anything else? Is this otherwise something that you'll just share with others later? Were you waking them up? Are you trying to tell Angajuk to go back?
Um, what Alexis does is kind of has like a chill feeling for me. She doesn't. She wants to explore, but she she opts to tell the others about it later when she wakes them up as she's um looking at the ship as they pass by it.
Gotcha. So let me get a D100 from you, please, Felixus. So, over the next few hours of your shift while you're watching, after she kind of passes along, as you kind of go through these phases where you're walking the ship and looking over things, she is going to end up showing you two more of these wrecks. At this point, I think you guys are at about like 13 or 14. I think it would be where you are easily starting to lose track and see that there are many places where you can come to in this sea of moving ice, and also notice a little bit more of the safety of your setup. But otherwise, your time is going to pass. As far as things go, if I can get a D100 from Brennick, do you have anything that you are going to pass to Brennick when you wake him up, Felix?
Yeah, just the information. Well, yeah, the information about the ship and that there was that I saw, and that he needs to be keep an eye out for that or for something trying to enter his mind, just in case.
How does Brennick absorb that?
The Brannicle kind of like he'll raise his eyebrows, like a ghost or something. Are you sure you actually? I don't mean to. Are you sure you actually saw it? Perhaps you dozed off.
I know what I saw, and you are more than welcome to ignore the warning if you wish. But something is in the. Some of these ships have creatures in them, whether they be living or dead. And it wouldn't surprise me if some ghosts were hunting them. They are sunken ships. We just know that they're sunken. Who knows what caused them to sink?
Brennick will nod. All right. Well, if I see anything similar, I'll let you know.
Let me get a perception check from you, Brennick, as you take to your first watch. So this ends up being a lot more of kind of a general swim than some of the other experiences have been. You don't see any other wrecks in the kind of time that passes by for Brennick. The others kind of. My bad. I'm not sure why I said that. Eventually, heading back down, your watch is. My bad. Coming up for air at times, the others were getting awoken, is one of the things that I was thinking. When you're coming back down to your watch, Brennick is going to just kind of get a little bit more relaxed than attentive, and you don't seem to be being showed anything by Engajuk. She seems a little bit quieter. That watch is going to go by pretty quickly. Do another perception for me here.
And I think like after like the first hours, like not really seeing too much, he'll still be kind of keeping watch, but he's also gonna kind of fish out one of the books that they had actually found at the tower and just kind of as you know, for while he's up, just like, kind of absently be reading it a bit. So
Gotcha. Okay. I was going to say that'll be disadvantage if you're paying more attention. Um, then you're focusing like just on the actual reading of the book. But yeah, like with that one, you're pretty well focused on reading your book there. And effectively don't really do much watch. Nothing is going to end up happening, whether that's because you missed it or because it happened or because there wasn't something. It just kind of gets to the time where you start to see Fen is starting to rouse a little bit, and you kind of look forward to you can spend a little bit more time with your book, or you can return to sleep.
yeah, I think he'll go ahead and put the book away. He'll go to get Fen for the watch. He will relay to Fen what Felixis had told him. Felixis said she saw something at one of the shipwrecks. Uh, some sort of seemed to frighten her. Sort of creature, undead creature, perhaps. I didn't see anything, but just thought I'd pass it along. And then with that, he will get ready to go back to sleep.
Coming full circle to it, what does Fen think as you have this described to you?
Well, based on recent travels with the talking moose and whale with a air bubble on its back, Ben is not skeptical of the strangeness of this world and will duly note it for the watch.
Let me get a perception from you. What kind of things are you doing while you're on watch? Are you hanging out with Enga or just kind of going about your own thing?
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out with Anga and pull out my calligrapher supplies and listen and talk when offered the opportunity, but not being afraid to be meditative and practice my calligraphy, trying to be inspired by what I'm seeing around me.
Gotcha. Just do throw a perception check there for me, and then roll a D100 for me as well. So over these next few hours for you, you don't have to lose much of your ability to focus on your surroundings. And there is a wild spectacle of things that you get to see watching the dawn's light of the silvery moon becoming the colorful aura shining across the ice above you, and the way it sparkles through the water, the way some of the colors of these different things underneath here are. There's going to be a lot of beautiful, inspiring things to see underneath what is often kind of a shiny, silvery roof, where you guys are in shallower water, or at times where you can experience much more. There's going to be 5 more shipwrecks that Angajuk will be able to show to you. At this point, I think each of you has seen that there are at least a half dozen or a dozen of these. I think most of you have seen about a half dozen to yourselves. But the abundance of these is clear. Let me have you roll. Okay, I'll do this one. One of these ships that you do cross by, you are going to have a similar feel of kind of what Valixis passed on to Brennick to what kind of arrived at you via like telephone. There's going to be the sense of a spirit kind of attached behind. Um, you see some of what kind of happens as you're passing by the ship with Angajuk, but it's far more that you have kind of a connection to perhaps the flow of energy, the key of this creature is perhaps more what you're sensing on. But at some point, you're going to pass by a ship and have that happen to you. What crosses your mind there? How do you react to that kind of feeling of this death, but so similar to life like yours?
So Fen will call out to Angajuk and say, "There, I sense something similar but alien. Do you sense anything?"
Angajuk kind of slowing with the swim and kind of like almost just stopping nearby and almost kind of twisting her body and her whole frame to look towards it. It's like everywhere yours come. It changes things. But it's coming back. As far as Angajuk seems, doesn't seem to be anything different about this place. Kind of where you'd stop is almost just in sight of it at that point, like before having gone too far.
Well, it gives me an uneasy feeling. Please continue on.
Roll a persuasion on that one. I think Engajuk understands what you're saying without knowing what you're saying. And I think that's more to the point of I don't think Angajuk is intelligent enough or like advanced enough. They're very childlike in a lot of ways, these like awakened creatures. I'm not sure if Angajuk really understands what kind of horror can keep some of these creatures behind. But you can kind of like get this conversation piece that Angajuk understands that there's a difference between some of these wrecks and some of these other wrecks. But more or less finishing up that, I think I have now a total of 19 potential shipwrecks that you guys can investigate. So perhaps I created a very poor way of deciding how many to give. But otherwise, there is a horde of things for you to explore underneath this ocean.
I love it.
At the end of the shift, before everybody else wakes up, Fen will say to Angajuk, "It is my life's greatest pleasure to come across the unspoiled wildernesses of this world, and I thank you for the opportunity to see the wonders that I have seen on this night. I will never forget them."
Roll another persuasion at advantage. Yeah, I feel like you were kind of all over it last session as well, with a very similar taste as for how Angashuk and Anga's relationship kind of existed. I don't know if I am creative enough to have a solid answer for you from Angashuk, except for just the idea that you recognize um, Angashuk really appreciates somebody who would want to see the ocean and underwater at the ocean in kind of the same way that Angajuk recognizes that if Anga didn't have that desire, she would still be just a whale. And these creatures all kind of have that same unique, they're just intelligent enough to know that whatever made them like this can potentially be taken away. So that's kind of like a way of like how this joy and this connection between Angashuk and you kind of draws to is this admiration for you have the same character quality that drove Anga to create Angashuk, and Angashuk loves that.
Birds of a feather. Yeah, because Fen is eating all this up. I mean, the chance to do this kind of exploration is, wasn't even in his realm of possibility. He's like a little kid in a candy store.
I feel like Angashuk could be a sweet campaign setting. It's like Avatar, basically, once you get the right magic.
Right, just a whole ocean, just a whole campaign with under in the water, just exploring it.
Oh, my bad. Brennick, did you hear? Can you roll a d8 for me, Justin?
Oh, my bad. Completely missed that.
All right, I think this is into the third day here. So I think this occurrence, let me get a d20 from Velixis, please.
You said a D20.
Yes, please.
And is this before or after they got up for the day?
Unless you had anything that you still wanted to share, like in the privacy, like that statement from you, I took as kind of the mark that they were waking up. The statement from you, the recognition from Angashuk, I think it would be perfectly fine for you to recognize like those first signs of them stirring and to have taken that time. So unless you wanted to step backward, I think they would
The only
be.
thing I wanted to share is the encounter with the uh, abnormal presence. That's it.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, that 100% is perfectly fine for you. That's one thing to always remind you guys. If you hear something when you're not there, you don't know that unless that person says. Or rather, you can eventually learn it unless that person kind of says that they're not going to do it. Usually it's assumed you're sharing everything. Um, but that's definitely one of the things you always have the choice of to say, I'm only going to tell them about my encounter with this death kind of creature, not going to share everything else, versus you can say I'm going to share everything else except for this encounter with, but you can always determine that. In general, it's just assumed you're sharing everything because it's so much easier. Definitely not forced. So yeah, you guys have a little bit more of a confirmation that not all of these ships have crashed and at least remained with natural deaths. I think perhaps it might be enough to recognize that sometimes as just part of the magic of the world. I don't think it should be too much at this point to recognize that you guys can explore these sites. Not all of them are basically just an empty ship there to be looted. Uh, but through the day, there's going to be another shark attack. I think you guys kind of figured out the general feel of that, and I don't really want to get necessarily into another shark combat. But that once again, with all of you all awake, you need to again kind of defend um, Angajuk through a battle. As far as that goes to kind of take spell slots and things from you, do you all effectively have an idea of how much you used on the last shark battle? Would you mind expending those spell slots again today? As far
Uh,
as
sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's effectively one level 3, and I think like one or two level 2s and a level 1. But then I was going to say for Ben, you'll have your key points because you guys will have kind of short rested, which would give you guys the potential to use arcane recovery as well. I'm not sure if you can get a third level back yet, but you're roughly around there.
I think it's half your up to half your wizard level.
All right, yeah, so you guys should both be at where you can get the third level spell slot left. So I just want you to have some spells expended as if you had another shark battle. Because effectively you guys are going to get to this point where Angashuk is showing you more and more of these wrecks until eventually you are going to come up to the actual island of Auril. And in this experience, you're going to see some of those very same wrecks, but they are in much shallower waters. The island, I think, is kind of a strange little sense of it's really just a big glacier, and you guys will kind of see almost this frozen underground nature to it as you come up to this area. And Angazuk is more or less pretty clear at this point that at any given time, the Rock of Auril will attack her when she comes here. That she doesn't stay long. So that warning is kind of like forefront as Auril is getting close to this about in like the middle of the day. You've arrived at where she was to bring you. She's telling you that the rock can kind of be an ever-present threat. And as you guys are coming up, you can see like the ice underwater is melted out to roughly around the surface level. So it's kind of like a floaty, like a donut has been removed from around this thing that is fatter below and fatter above, around where the water kind of laps up against the island. You see some signs of ships here and there that are crashed. Um, Perception wise, I think Fen might be the one who's perceptive enough to pick up that some of these aren't just bigger, they're larger creations, that not all of these are human sized and at like a different distance from you. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like the big way in this afternoon. You guys are coming up to the island of Auril. Any thoughts as to when Anga gets you close here?
We able to judge about how, like, is the island, can we see like the entirety of the like the shoreline, or is it like, does it look like a big, I guess like, basically, like, do we get some sense of how big the island is?
So at this point, I'm not even taking you guys up to the surface with Anga yet. Part of what I was going at it that this is still underwater because Anga wants it to be clear that like when the rock comes, you guys are either going to like leave with her for a while or you guys can use it as a distraction, but like the rock is when big stuff happens. Angajuk is essentially saying she will run if this thing comes after her, so she's swimming deep. um if you are ready to get to the surface and start to see, we can take you to the surface to see. But Angajuk is effectively kind of telling you some of these things and taking you around what's getting close to the surface. There is still a blizzard going on above. When you guys get to the top, you'll see that it is actually worse than you've ever experienced here in Icewind Dale. Angajuk can definitely share with you that this island is massive. Um, Maybe that would be on kind of a time frame. And if you like ask something like Angajuk, how long does it take you to swim around the island? Expecting something like a minute or something, like for an island that would float around the sea, she comes back with like an hour.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes more sense. I lost track of where exactly we were. So, like, up above or below the surface. So yeah, that makes more sense that he would ask. Yeah, like, try to get a sense that way.
So on
So,
some level, the sense should be that this is a massive island.
should we go
And
ahead and
my bad. For this picture here, I revealed a little bit. You guys are in kind of the southeastern part of this map.
So Willis is gonna ask, should we go ahead and just hop off Angel and have her just dump us at the island? Because if she's gonna end up getting attacked by Arrow, but she's not gonna be able to stay, we're probably not gonna be able to get a ride with her back. At least not anytime soon. Uh, so what should we do?
If this is we came for, I suppose we should get ashore, let Angashuk get out of here.
What do you think, Finn? Should we go ahead and hop on board? Or...
Sounds good to me.
So well, let's Angel, I think we're gonna go ahead and hop onto the island to come and do what we came for. I do hope that we can see you again. But we don't want to keep you around if you're gonna be at risk of getting attacked.
It definitely reminds you that you also are at risk of getting attacked. But she kind of like recognizes a little bit. I think one of the things that she'll kind of leave you with is the idea she'll take you to the docks. I think that's just as simple as, I'll take you to an easy way onto the island. I think she'll leave you all with the idea that the bird sleeps at the peak of the island, effectively also the center of the island. So the closer you get towards the center, the more that you have to worry about that. And let me have a group insight check. So, regardless, Brennick is going to, yeah, I think Brennick and Velixis are aware enough. Yeah, I mean, even Fens. Yeah, I think all three of you understand that in the process of stepping away from Engajuk, you guys are going to just be here. And Engajuk doesn't know kind of how to think about, like, just leaving you here, recognizing what this island is. And Engajuk has like that weird hesitancy of like, no, you hang up first. You hang up first.
Yeah, Brannick was going to ask actually, like, so like when we use the bell to kind of call for her back at the coast, but if we need to get off the island, um, should we perhaps like long as you could be, I don't know, set a time to check in for lack of a better word, or is there something we can do that would indicate to Ange, not that she's going to stick around waiting for us, but like almost set like kind of like a schedule for like checking to see like if we need to get off. Otherwise, not sure how we would get away.
Roll an intelligence for me. Does anybody else have any ideas about how to contact Engajuk again?
Um, Felix doesn't. She states that we don't have another bell here, and let's say willing to like shoot off a signal or something like that. That could pretty much that may alert enemy creatures to where they're at the time. The best would be to wait because we're not even sure how long we're going to be on this.
So I agree that potentially shooting something into the sky is a way that you guys can at least do something. Brennick already kind of brought up the other ideas, perhaps having like a time schedule. I definitely think that Brennick, you should be able to think of the fact that there's the white light and the colored lights for Angajuk's life. Like her scale of time is like, is it red, pink, or green above, or is it like this silvery blue? Um, and that's kind of the way for deciding time. If you guys want to send a signal by doing something off into the sky, what kind of time frame do you want to set with Engajuk, understanding that you need to kind of phrase it in this passing amount of time to check on us?
Brennick might suggest, like, if she can check, you know, each day when the aurora appears at like such like daybreak. Um, look for us in this, the I guess the general area of the docks.
Does that sound good to everyone else? Vaguely at daybreak around this area, the same area?
Felix states that that may be too often since the island shoes we're definitely gonna be here longer than a day. Maybe every 3 days, have her check. Every third, every third day, have her check.
How does every third day sound to the others? You guys leaning towards every day, every third day?
Uh, Brennick still thinks, if Angajuk is willing, every day, um, this island is likely quite dangerous, and 3 days between just seems like it maybe too long.
So as Velixis and Brennick look towards Fen, what's Fen thinking?
I agree. If Angajuk is willing to stay nearby, but far enough away to keep out of the way of Auril and the rock, perhaps every day is the best in case we need to make a hasty retreat.
Let me get a persuasion from the from Brennick with advantage, please. So Angajuk reacts and looks to this kind of idea of the changing of moonlight to the aurora overhead to vaguely look in this area. I think your response can be something to the effect of, "Oh, try to stay close, and I'll go for air when I can watch that time. And perhaps if you're in danger, I'll see it another time." But you kind of get the promise that Angelique will stay close. She can't really just stay somewhere, but can stay close that effectively every once in a while, if she's up for air and you happen to call for help, you might be able to get Angelique's attention.
Okay, and Brannick, I think, is also going to ask, like, if it would be all right if he left a few things on board with Angajuk that he doesn't want to take onto the island. Should just stow them.
Yeah, I think on some level that's perfectly fine up to you, and it comes up to this idea that at very least, if you found your way back, you could call Ingashuk again from the bell, but that you guys probably are leaving here the same way that you came here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like the books and like kind of the heavy stuff that he's not going to really have much use for on this. He'd rather have them somewhat safer. So that's kind of the stuff that I was thinking of. So
Anyone else have any thoughts?
Nah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that Angashuk would really recognize the other things that you might leave behind. You can most certainly leave those. The others might notice that you are lightening your burden. When you guys do surface, the winds are going to be much, much colder. At this point here, everyone can recognize that the temperature has dropped drastically. Everything hurts more. If you have exposed skin, you can get frostbite within moments. This is a far deeper, dangerous cold than you've even experienced inside of Icewind Dale. The feel of the winds in this area, they are some of the strongest blizzard winds that you've come across inside of Icewind Dale. And as you kind of surface, you guys can't really see much coming up from the edge until eventually you're going to see a bit of land off to the left of you, a bit of land kind of straight ahead before you start to see that the land is kind of coming out a little bit and that you're going into this little gulf in the land before you're going to see docks. When you first see the shape of the docks, it's just going to be that. But it's until you all continue to get closer and closer, the size variance that Fen is already kind of aware of is that these docks are massive. And when it comes time that you all see Valine kind of stand up and step off of Angajuk and onto this solid ground, the scale is going to fit where you all are going to notice that this dock is built for giants. Valine walks on this dock like you guys would walk on, like a regular dock that would be on a pond where you came from. Um, Something about this location is related to giants. And her standing at 21 feet tall might seem a little bit uneasing, but as you all disembark into the fresh blizzard, what are you all thinking?
But this is thinking, if there's giants here, please don't let nothing stop us. Especially with this blizzard going on, they're likely not gonna see us.
yes, if we can avoid their attention, perhaps that'd be for the better. Do the docks look like well maintained, like they're in use currently, from what we can see of them?
Roll a perception check at disadvantage. Again, like this blizzard beating into you, trying to take some time to focus on the other things around you is something else. It's not unbearable, but it definitely takes some of your like willpower to just focus on doing something other than what feels like natural, like your survival instinct of stepping into this experience. But as far as you can tell, I don't think there's any reason for them to seem especially new. I don't think that there's any reason to see them as being especially old either. I think what you can kind of draw away is that perhaps this place is frozen in time because things are coated in ice. Like the ice on this would I don't think the structure is going to be a simple like wooden structure. I've seen pictures like of Russia before where there's like inches of ice on things from like a blizzard that just came through in an instant. I feel like this is kind of how it like looks, where it almost looks like it froze just in a flash.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Brannick will suggest, like, kind of what we've done before, maybe tie ourselves together. We need to, maybe there's some sort of like uh caves or someplace where you can, if we are going to be here overnight, well, I don't know if we'll ever survive out in this stuff. So maybe we should start looking to see if there's, um, any sort of possible shelter, even though it's, early in the day, but kind of just thinking ahead.
So I don't think I mentioned it yet, but this is one of the few maps, yeah, that I can't put to like a 5 square size. It is 200 feet to go a single square on this map, just to kind of remind you of the size. Like if you were to measure, even how much I've revealed here is far beyond what you can actually see. But it is trying to give you the first sense of this island. Um, it's massive. So like hopping onto that is definitely like just the first step. It's definitely going to be kind of like a blind exploration though. So as you guys tie yourselves together, who do you think is going to lead? Do you guys want Valine to lead? Do one of you want to lead? Do you want to? Where do you want Valine to sit in things here?
Fen will suggest that he take the lead of the lead in the rear, just because of with visibility and her size, she would be recognized if she was in the front, but not necessarily if she was in the back.
Gotcha. So are we doing Fen Brennick or are we doing Fen Velixis? What are you guys thinking?
Brennan can offer to stay, I guess, go third. So before Valine.
Melissa's figures she'd walk either alongside or like alongside at the back area because she doesn't want to be up front just in case.
Okay. Well, which one of you is walking after Fen? Because both of you just said not I.
Oh, I'll walk out the Fed.
Gotcha. If both of you don't walk after Fen, you guys are just gonna watch as Fen walks away from you. Alrighty. So you guys are on the surface of this island by the sense of what you've seen. You have snow and ice that lead off in kind of the left, straight ahead, or right. Vaguely east, straight ahead, north, or right to the. Wait, I said that wrong. Vaguely west, straight ahead to the north, or to the east. What kind of things are you all thinking as Felixis or as Fen starts to leave? Are you guys looking for a particular direction? What do you think?
Brannick figures, we don't really know anything about this island. We can barely see in front of us, so one direction's probably as good, quote unquote, good as another. When in doubt, go right. But it won't be, adamant about it. It's just a suggestion. Or
Right, it is.
Works for me.
Roll a survival for me, please, Fen. So, over the next few hours, you all are going to kind of pass around and see along kind of the icy coastline of this area a vague understanding that there's kind of a slushy between of where the ice kind of starts and stops being enough that you can step on to where there's enough that there's a kind of noise that kind of gives you a clue. But in general, walking on the snow is proving to be that's where it's kind of safest to kind of keep to. But with that, you kind of explore this little northeastern part of this portion and find that it's all kind of towards the outside of this location. Let me get a. Yeah, I think I don't need a roll. My apologies there. As you guys kind of come around this area, you could have a pretty solid idea that you've probably paced off and are roughly back near to where that dock would be if you went directly south. But again, this is kind of a reminder like each of these squares is 200-foot square. So it takes probably about 15-20 minutes to walk between them. You guys are already going to be kind of into like the middle of this day, I think.
so once we get back to kind of where we sort of like in the vicinity of the docks, Brannick will suggest maybe start north and maybe try and see how try to maybe see how if we can reach the next coast, get a sense of how how long that takes.
We could. I I wouldn't have an issue with that now.
All right, so if I understood, you're going to continue kind of counterclockwise along the northern side, um, trying to basically see how large this section is going around that way, right?
Yeah, sorry, I may have misunderstood you. I thought like so we went east and then I thought maybe we had like come back and we're closer to the docks, but otherwise like yeah, essentially going
That's where I think
counterclockwise.
I might have kind of left it kind of poorly. I was kind of thinking that you all have already kind of done this. And I was kind of saying, you guys understand you're just north of the dock right now. You can't see it. It would take you some time to go back to it. But my point is that even though you're not directly over it now, you have a feeling, you have that sense. And I don't think any of you all are expertise in like cartography, but you have that sense you're back above the dock. If you went directly south, you would come to the dock, or you could, like you said, kind of keep exploring this way, and you'll feel out how big is this portion. Is this an island to itself? Is it part of the bigger island?
Gotcha. Okay, so in that case, I think Brannick would more suggest maybe we keep going um, west, maybe sticking to like this edge of this shoreline.
So if you, oh, what are you thinking there? Did you just post the Outlander thing?
Yeah, I didn't know if it gave me any bonuses to. No, it doesn't look like it though. Other than
Yeah, and most of the time these things are just kind of fluff. Um, I don't believe that's giving you anything really here.
yeah, one of the features is Wanderer. You have an excellent memory for maps and geography, and you can always recall the general layout of terrain, settlements, and other features around you.
Yeah, so again, even more of an idea that you are pretty sure, like, you guys have come back around to where you are above where you first got onto this island. So if you guys are ready to continue with that idea of basically following the northern edge that you found along to the west, effectively continuing that counterclockwise search that you started, let's get another survival from Fen. So, kind of coming along the northern side and making your way around, you guys can kind of make out the next section of this little coastline, eventually coming to a point where you start to see a drastic change in the coast as it starts to move pretty much opening up into like a wide bay. As it turns to the north, you're going to start to experience that there's a drastic incline up to the west of where you are. And effectively, that's kind of your first sign here that you've met like the larger body. Whoops, that was the wrong. You've met like the larger body of what this small thing you've experienced was. But you guys are kind of can't even drop. I just dropped a token and I think it scaled it down. I think it just disappeared. Yeah, it's Felixus to size. It's like a little pinprick on the map. But my point was, is you guys are kind of like around this top area here.
Yeah, I don't even see that token.
Oh, it's off in the like fog of war. I can't even pick it up.
Oh, damn.
So, sorry, you're saying the ground starts to incline steeply to the north of
To
us,
your left.
to the west. Okay.
Yeah, to the west of you, to your left, you're basically looking as this area opens up into a larger section, and that's kind of your sign that, you guys were on kind of like an outer spoke of a wheel, and you're coming to that choice. You can continue to explore in that way. You guys can try to climb the mountain above you, or you can start to head south and explore what you kind of left unexplored.
I think Brannick will turn to Fen and kind of defer to him at this point as he's leading them. Let him pick their next direction.
Well, ordinarily, I would say go for the high ground, but with visibility, what it is, climbing the mountain's not going to do us any good. And we have no option to keep going to the east or northeast.
Like east of you right now is water. The northern direction is one of your directions. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. I was thinking the parts to the north were land. That's water, you're saying? Okay, yeah, I got it. I got it
The
backwards here.
white on this map is snow and
Yeah,
land.
yeah,
The
yeah.
blue is the water.
I was thinking, yeah, yeah. Okay. Uh, in this regard, I'd say let's try climbing the mountain, but let's reverse the order this time and have Valine be our anchor first, and Alexis, Brannick, and then me bringing up the rear.
It's reminded me of Arrested Development. The blue is. I don't know if everyone watches Arrested Development, but yeah, Brannick will kind of look up, like I guess he will know he can't tell how high this mountain goes, but he will. He seems a little leery of trying to climb it, but he'll follow. If that's what Fen suggests, he will. He will follow the that idea.
So if you all go to send Valine first, she's going to climb up this kind of side of this mountain with relative ease. I don't have a solid idea how big the mountain's supposed to be, but we'll say it kind of just comes up maybe about like 100 or 200 feet as it gets like well above the sea level in this cliff-like edifice. But she is able to make the test with pretty well ease and effort. As far as things go, I would say you're going to have to simply just follow with her, or you can untie her and do something else. But if you want her to lead, the ropes I don't think you guys have are long enough for her to get to the top and be done. So you guys are going to have to kind of test at the same time.
Yeah, if Valine's going to be in the lead, Brannick will try and stick very close to her.
Gotcha. So you guys could you could definitely rearrange the order. But for what it is worth, if Brennick follows behind Valine, let me get a strength check from you, Brennick. Athletics if you have it, but I don't believe that you do. And then we're doing Felixus. And then Fen, please. I know you've got athletics. Just to confirm, Rashad, you do not have a different save modifier for strength than you do strength, right? Like that's no proficiency. You don't have a negative. Yeah, you got
Nah,
zero.
that's a zero.
So at some point, you all are going to recognize that Brennick is being dragged behind Valine and just kind of hanging there. It's going to become a little bit more obvious when Brennick actually has to climb for himself after Valine finishes. But I think, other than just kind of failing and it having no effect on her ability to climb, you're just going to kind of notice yourself, Brennick, and you almost kind of like reverse repelling, where you're just like making the motions far more so you don't get hurt getting bashed against the ice in the wall than that you actually need to do anything. And I think each of the other people could easily spot that at some point there.
Right. Now, is this the kind of climb that a climber's kit would help with? Is that more a cliff? Like this is more like almost like hiking type of climbing.
As far as this goes here, this is far more like the climb was to make sure that you're not dislodging stuff. But yeah, like climber's kit would have, you guys do all have it. In the long run, that would have helped.
Okay, I kind of forgot I had it for a while, but I wasn't sure if it would actually kind of be handy at all. So
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think all three of you would have to fall before it would even stop Valine from climbing you guys up to the top of that. And I'm not even sure if that would have done it.
Moving forward, just for the out of character, I would think if we were traveling tied together anyways, it would make sense to have our harnesses and all that stuff on us in case we came to a crevasse or something like that that we had to climb out of. Like I would almost make that our standard operating gear when we were out traveling in the wildernesses.
Yeah, and I think the pythons, or not the pythons,
The shoes.
the crampons are the type of thing where, yeah, it's the same thing. Like once you guys have these things, it's pretty often going to be switched between. But yeah, like that you're almost always wearing either the crampons or snowshoes is constant. Just as much as, yeah, when you guys are moving tied together like that, there's no reason not to have your harnesses. It saves part of the distance on the rope that you need to actually tie just to the harnesses, and it actually makes less break points in how ropes like break by not tying into a harness as well. But yeah, that was not meant to be a difficulty. It was meant to be because you guys chose to go up a mountainside instead of like walking on flat land. So I wasn't necessarily a fail state so much as like what kind of like demeaning thing might happen because you did it.
yeah, that fits. I mean, Brannick's not a yeah, not a mountain climber.
So, having gotten to kind of this higher ground, you all are in still a pretty similar situation where you can't really make anything out that is of like big note. But you all are now higher at least somewhat more central, and you kind of have a new border that you could walk along the edges of basically like this edge that leads to this cliff face, both to the northeast of you and to the southwest or southeast of you. You could follow it, but you have a feeling that you have like that other border to follow. Much more dangerous than following the ice's edge. But what do you guys have in mind as you make it to the top of this climb? Do you guys want to head directly away from the cliff? Do you want to head north along the cliff, south along the cliff? What kind of thoughts do you guys have on how to explore your surrounding? You're walking around in a blizzard, kind of incapable of seeing in any great distance, theoretically on the island of a god.
Valencia suggests that we walk away from the cliff so that we don't cause an avalanche and fall back down it, but kind of stick close. So I guess north would be our best. I guess north of the cliff would be our best bet.
Yeah, Brannick definitely doesn't want to. He doesn't want to risk like walking along the cliff's edge, so he would prefer to stay on kind of like uh, the flatter, higher ground, or if we are going to climb down, and then kind of pick a direction. But he doesn't want to be. Excuse me, he doesn't want to be traveling along the cliff's edge.
So I think Felixis was saying let's head north, like effectively, you can't deny along the cliff's edge. And then Brennick did not want the cliff's edge to be a variable, so you're basically saying we should head west. What is Fen thinking?
Yeah, basically perpendicular to the cliff, so that would be west.
Gotcha. Let's get another survival from you here.
And now that we're up the cliff, we'll go back to our original marching order.
So while you are marching forward, um, you're going to be kind of the first. My bad, I showed too much. The first to kind of see as you push forward and along what becomes like uh, rising snow burns to almost like a wall ahead, and then you see it has become a wall, and you can see that it kind of climbs up, and there's probably about a 50-foot vertical wall that you are pretty sure you're able to see the top of. Why I say this one is different than the other is that it has smooth construction like feel to it. It doesn't look natural, and it doesn't look like it's kind of like placed stone or anything. It still looks like ice, but there's kind of an eerie sense that this is not a natural structure.
Most likely, someone put that there. Should be cautious here.
Do we see if that structure has any entranceway on it or anything like that, or any windows?
Roll a perception check. What are you thinking when you get to it, Fen? I think you'd be the first, so they already kind of like gathered up behind you.
Yeah, I just take the time to overlook it and to see if there were any visible entrances or portcullises or arrow slits or any man-made.
Gotcha. So they'll arrive kind of noticing what you're going for. You two can roll a perception as if Elixis and you were kind of looking through the storm at this eerie wall. Brennick sharing that perhaps there's danger in this. Looking around, you're not going to spot anything in the wall itself. There's just going to be kind of a quiet moment in time where the snow opens up and you're able to see for about 150 or 200 feet ahead. And in particular, this is meant for Fen as well. It's very much kind of like a moment in your meditation where you're just able to kind of see like a freeze frame of this moment where the snow kind of opened up. And as you're kind of looking off for these windows, you're just going to see a crown that is the size of a mountain. So there's like a sense of, again, everything is still like there's a point where you can't see everything beyond. This head, this crown are near that point where you're seeing maybe part of this crown, but you gain the view looking up and to the side where you can see kind of like the open socket of the eye looking down and from below and almost kind of behind it. You don't really see an ear or anything that the crown's resting on, but you can see kind of the like sharp points that go up and reach out from the crown and make these almost canceling like pinnacles towards the top of it, and you can see kind of the forehead of the creature that's wearing it. A little bit of the lower jaw is kind of in the clarity, and you're kind of gaining a sense of this. And this mountain is in the shape of this skull that you are looking at that wears the crown. And kind of in that moment, it's going to pass. The blizzard kind of picks back up, and you're kind of like back in this almost claustrophobic feel of the snow. And I think with that view of Auril's temple, we're going to call it here.
All right.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.